Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, where we explore the mindset, skill set, and habit set of leadership communication. Using these tips, techniques, and tactics, you'll be able to talk like a leader to build better relationships and get more done. Your host is Guy Harris, who has more than 20 years of combined professional and military experience in consulting, coaching, and training in areas like team and interaction dynamics, communication strategies and tactics, as well as emotional intelligence. Take it away, Guy.
Hi, this is Guy Harris. Welcome to Talk Like a Leader. This week, I have a special guest with me. It's a friend and colleague of mine, Wayne Turmel. Welcome, Wayne.
Hey, Guy, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to have you here today. Wayne has a very special thing going on today. Today is launch day as we record this for his new book, Long Distance Teammate. And I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to talk about the long distance teammate, long distance leader connection to talking like a leader. Now that we're just short of a year into the COVID-19 pandemic response and the number of people that are having to work remotely and find themselves working remotely suddenly, and we're pretty far into it. A lot of people have adapted, and I think there's still a lot to learn about how to do it successfully. So I thought we'd engage with Wayne a bit today and talk about that and get his perspective from a teammate perspective, and keeping with the idea of the book, Long Distance Teammate. How does that connect to relationships, communication, those kind of things? I'll start with a question. Wayne, what is your view or take on, I guess, kind of the broad picture, big picture, the idea of long distance teammate? What does that mean, and how can we get better at it?
Well, Kevin and I actually went round and round on what we should call the book, right? And originally it was the long distance team member. And we came to the conclusion that there is a fundamental difference between being a member of a team and being a true teammate.
Okay.
Anybody who answers to the same boss is by definition part of the team, right? Mm-hmm. But we also know that the people who really add value and we enjoy working with and whatever, there is a emotional, social, psychological connection that goes beyond just sharing a manager.
Okay.
And so we were really, really conscious on how do you reach that level? How do Guy and I become teammates as opposed to just two guys on the same team?
So did you come to any conclusions or insights or perspectives that are important for us to remember as we continue in this remote work world? How do we go from team member to teammate?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. And when you work remotely, you need to be really aware of them. Number one, I think, is that when we work together, it's the strength of the relationships. It's, do we have fun working together? Do we enjoy each other's company? Yeah. And we know that there are people that we legitimately like and look forward to interacting with, and maybe some other people that don't come to mind immediately.
Sure.
And when you work remotely, it's important that you maintain those relationships. And part of the reason is, and you and I were joking about this early, when you are an introvert and you're working remotely, it can take a lot of work to reach out. It can be draining to talk to these other people. And I don't really care how Guy's grandkids are. I just want to know if he's done the report, right?
Have you been inside my head, Wayne?
and
right, yeah,
that sort of stuff happened organically and sometimes involuntarily when we shared a workspace together. Mm-hmm. You would see people, and only some special kind of jerk would not say good morning or ask how they're doing, or do that kind of thing. So there was a natural communication that went on that helped build relationships and attitudes. And, we would see, even if Guy never said anything in meetings, he takes a lot of notes and he's really paying attention. And I get a sense of what he brings to the team. Whereas if, Alice never says anything on meetings and I never see her work, what do I know about her, right?
There's really no connection at all.
What's she bringing to the party? If I have a question, am I going to go to Alice or am I going to go to Guy? I'm
Right.
going to go to the person that I know and that I enjoy working with and that we have an existing relationship. And, so that's just on an individual level. And of course, all leaders of remote teams are also members of remote teams.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not just a leader, you're a member too. Hopefully a
And
teammate.
so, we leaders need to wear that hat as well and say, think about not just the team that I lead, but the team that I'm on.
Yeah.
Right. And am I consciously doing the things I need to do to be a good teammate?
So thinking from a leader's perspective, you're clipping along, you're working in an office, you know the 5 or 6 or 8 people that are on your team, and you see them every day, you see them with the coffee pot, all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden you find yourself working remotely. And we talked months ago about what happens immediately. But longer term, as we stay in this kind of world, what are some things that leaders really need to be thinking about to maintain that teammate sort of environment rather than just team member?
I think there's a few things. And one of them is we need to create opportunities beyond just the weekly status meeting.
Okay.
For people to work together.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody comes to you with a question, do you roll your eyes and go, all right, I'll take time out of my life and answer it? Or do you say, who you should ask about that? Have you talked to Angie? Because she knows that stuff cold. Because it's natural that somebody's going to want to go to their leader because that's the most important relationship they have.
Uh-huh.
Right?
So the leader needs to kind of to point people to each other and facilitate inter-team communication.
Yeah, create opportunities for them to interact.
Okay.
One of the kind of traditional things that happens when somebody onboards is we hire a new guy and we're going to pair him up with old Jack because Jack's been here a million years and he's going to be the mentor.
Right.
What if we took the new person and paired them with 3 different people instead of just one?
So you're spreading the network of connections rather than just one.
And creating legitimate, valid reasons to reach out. I mean, one of the things that Kevin does when somebody joins our team, as you know, is the first job they have is they need to reach out to every member of the team and schedule a half-hour webcam conversation, even if you're unlikely to work with Lisa in payables or, Erica in graphics. It's your job to reach out and have in-depth half-hour conversations with every member of the team because it jumpstarts the connections that might take weeks or months to happen organically.
Pretty good about giving a very specific and relatively short time frame to do that. I don't remember I think it's usually like within the first 2 weeks or something like that he said.
It's the first week, 10 days at the most. I think the official. So
it's like, get on it. get talking.
And it says that is the job.
That's your job. Yeah. So it's a real mindful approach to it. Let's say a leader is doing these things and they're trying to facilitate conversation, trying to create opportunities, that kind of thing. What might they be looking for as telltale signs that this process isn't working well? Is there anything you can see as a remote leader or observe that gives you a clue that my team is not gelling?
There are, and unfortunately, they are seldom visible until they have reached some sort of critical mass of problems. Because the number one problem on a remote team is exclusion and silence.
Okay.
And, how do you hear silence, right?
You can't hear what's not there.
You can't hear what's not there. So you need to be very, very conscious of your active listening. And something that has occurred to me recently is that nothing is fine.
Good point.
And here's what I mean by this. I work from home. My wife does not. She comes home. How was your day, dear? Fine. Is there anybody listening to this dumb enough to think that her day was fine?
That's probably a clue, right?
Right. But think about it now. You've got your list of things for your employees. So I've got my one-on-one with Guy, and I've got 5 things on my list. And I ask question 1 and I ask question 2. And then I say, so how's that project going? Oh, fine. Good. He said, fine. Next question. You need to have your eyes and ears on. This is really hard to quantify. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if you suspect that something is up, if you read an email and go, that sounded a little snippy. Well, first of all, emails don't sound anything.
It is how you read it, yeah.
By definition, they are words on a page, but they convey tone and meaning.
Right.
If something twigs in your head that doesn't sound quite right, or I was on the meeting and Bob and Alice kind of got into it, I want to know what's going on there. Mm-hmm. I don't need to jump in. I don't have to be dad. I don't have you two get along or I'll knock your heads together. You're not having that conversation. But you want to know, is there something there? Is there a lack of trust? Is there a lack of understanding of assumptions? The more you let things ride and the more you let them fester, eventually they reach a point where they can no longer be ignored. And at that point, they are much harder to address.
So is this a fair way to say that in a remote environment, you probably need to be on the lookout for it anyway. That's just like the leader's job, to be on the look for this stuff. And when you're remote, you don't have that organic feedback and you don't see people passing in the hallway. You don't see meeting dynamics necessarily.
Exactly.
You have to have a really heightened awareness to potential early signs, like even to how was that email done? Like how was that email phrased and how quickly did the response happen? And how were they interacting with each other when we're on web meetings, that kind of thing. So really not necessarily presuming something's wrong, just being very sensitive to early clues that something might be. Is that a fair way?
I think it comes from expanding our definition of active listening.
Okay.
Those of us of a certain age, we all at some point in our management career got taught active listening, right? Paraphrasing, repeating, checking in, right? Those things are even more critical when you're lacking all the cues that you can't possibly avoid.
Okay.
Right? If I'm sitting across from you in a meeting and your body language goes cold,
you can tell.
I can tell.
Right.
If we're on a webcam conversation and you're just sitting there and ordinarily you jump in there and you're just letting that pass. Okay, are you just letting it pass, or is there a reason for that? There's a question, there's a follow-up, there's a why do you say that? Mm-hmm. That is part of active listening, but it's even more critical when you're not getting the visual and nonverbal cues.
That's awesome.
So like I say, if somebody says fine, the next question is, well, what does that mean?
What does it mean? So tell me more. Give me some specifics, that kind of thing.
Right.
So launch of Long Distance Teammate is starting today. And I know there are lots of special stuff going on around it. So I'm going to give you a chance to tell everybody, where can they get more information? How can they learn more about Long Distance Teammate?
Yeah, well, the Long Distance Teammate, stay engaged and connected while working anywhere. Available at fine booksellers near you. But there is also a website dedicated to the book, longdistanceteammate.com. Okay. You can learn more about the book. There are special bonuses for ordering through us. There's special content that's been created for the book. And of course, anything that we talk about in this work is also, kind of filtered through remoteleadershipinstitute.com. Right. And so, Long Distance Teammates, specifically about the book, anything having to do with either being a long distance leader or a good remote teammate, you can also find at Remote Leadership Institute.
So remoteleadershipinstitute.com is a great hub of resources for both leading teams, being part of a team when you're in a remote world, and trying to do that more effectively and more productively. Wayne, I appreciate you being with me today, man. It's always good to have you here, and I look forward to more time with you in the future on Talk Like a Leader. What I'm going to suggest is, if you're working in a remote world, which probably somewhere between 50 and 80% of the people listening to this podcast probably are, I'm going to recommend you go check out Remote Leadership Institute, Long Distance Teammate, Long Distance Leader. Great resources to help you learn more about how to do that more effectively. And I think if you do that and you apply that on top of all the other things we've talked about here in this podcast, you can talk like a leader.
This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.